Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC Fight Night Sandhagen v Nurmagomedov. As you know, this is late. Supremely late. But we'll get into it regardless. We start with the first fight of the night. Dumas versus Tiuliulin. Okay, I had the 29-28. First two rounds for Dumas. Last round for Tiuliulin. In the first round, Tiuliulin had a takedown, but Dumas had two takedowns with, I don't even want to call it ground and pound. It was more knees to the thighs, or to the thigh of Tiuliulin. In this first round, Tiuliulin had a bunch of strikes to the back of the head that no one seemed to reference. Commentary didn't reference. The ref didn't seem to reference until late. I mean, no one mentioned it. It was almost like they just decided we're not going to talk about multiple strikes to the back of Dumas's head. Regardless, the second round, Dumas had a takedown with some strikes again to the thigh of Tiuliulin. Tiuliulin was very active on the bottom, but it was kind of irrelevant. Dumas outstruck Dumas on the feet by about 10 plus strikes. That round, again, belongs to Dumas. And then you go to the third round. Dumas barely outstruck Tiuliulin on the feet. Barely outstruck him on the feet. But Tiuliulin had about two takedowns. One of them he did nothing with. The other, he had some ground and pound. That round belongs to Tiuliulin. You go to the judges' scorecards. And we know they're going to be unique. Ben Cartlidge and Clemens Warner, their scorecard reflects mine. And then Vito Paio, he gives a 30-27 to Dumas. Just wrong. I understand what he was probably looking at in the sense that most of it was on the feet and then a little bit was on the ground. But given the overall scope of that round, that last round should have gone to Tiuliulin's honorable mention of Vito Paio. You go to the next honorable mention, and it's Herbert versus Bedoya. I thought Bedoya was going to fight at welterweight. Turns out, fuck it, he wants to fight at a lower weight class, and so that's what he did here. I don't want to say that he looked worse at this weight class, but I guess technically he did. Technically he did. When he fought Chaos Williams, he looked a lot better. Obviously, I thought he won that fight, but he moved down in weight for this fight, and I had this 29-28 to Herbert. First round for Herbert, last round for Herbert. I go to the first round where Bedoya outstruck Herbert in this round. He outstruck him by 5 to 6 strikes, but he got dropped by Herbert, so he lost the round. You go to the second round where Bedoya outstruck Herbert by about 3 strikes. I know it's very few strikes he outstruck him by, but he was, relatively speaking, outstruck him the entire round. You then go to the third round. You go to the third round where Herbert had a takedown and he outstruck Bedoya by about 20 plus strikes. So there you have it on that. You go to the judges' scorecards, and Mike Bell and Hadi Muhammad Ali have it 30-27 for Herbert, and then David Lethaby, his scorecard reflects mine. I'm going to give an honorable mention here. I think that second round belongs to Bedoya, but the optics of the round look very much in favor of Herbert. It was weird how it looked. Pretty much Bedoya's bleeding, but he's outstriking Herbert, but the optics don't look good for Bedoya. So I'll take off the honorable mention, but you get where I stand on that. You go to the third honorable mention, and that's Dudakova versus Hughes. This is not a split decision. Nowhere is this a split decision at all. At all. It's not a split decision. I had this 29-28 for Hughes. First round for Dudakova. Last 2 rounds for Hughes. The first round is close on strikes, but Dudakova has a takedown. You go to the second round where Dudakova had a takedown, but she did nothing with the takedown, and Hughes outstruck her by 15 plus strikes. She was cleaning her. There was portions in this fight where Dudakova looked much better in terms of her striking, but her striking was not only was a lot of it missing, but she just landed occasional strikes. It's not as though she was really good on the feet. I go to the third round. Both of them had a takedown. The difference in this instance is Hughes was a lot more active on the ground. And she outstruck Dudakova on the feet. She outstruck Dudakova on the feet by 6+ strikes. And when they were on the ground, when she was on the bottom, Hughes was extremely active. Dudakova was barely active, close to not even active on top. So I want to say she wasn't even active on top, but I'm just trying to be respectful here. And that's where you get the 29-28. You go to the judges' scorecards, where David Lethaby, his scorecard reflects mine. Daryl Ransom, his scorecard reflects mine. And then Howard Hughes has the worst scorecard of the night, where it's 30-27, and he gives all 3 rounds to Dudakova. Either Dudakova is the most beautiful woman on the planet, or he really likes takedowns, because that seems to be the theme. All 3 rounds Dudakova had a takedown. The question is, she was outstruck heavily in 2 of those rounds, 2 and 3. So, big honorable mention to Howard Hughes for the worst scorecard of the night, and probably one of the worst scorecards ever. You go to the next honorable mention. We go to the next honorable mention. Okay, next honorable mention. And that's what I think is a robbery. And no one agrees, but that's fine. Dern versus Godinez. I had this 29-28 for Godinez. First round for Dern. Last 2 rounds for Godinez. Question mark. You go to the first round where Dern had a takedown with some ground and pound. That was close to the end of the round, really. And she outstruck Dern, and she outstruck Godinez on the feet by about 6+ strikes on the feet. But she had a takedown with some ground and pound as well. You go to the second round. Where it's close on strikes, but Godinez had a takedown. Very, very close on strikes, so practically even on strikes on the feet, and Godinez had a takedown. Then you go to the third round, where Dern has a takedown, proceeds to do nothing with the takedown. Godinez outstrikes Dern on the feet. The optics of this fight are just really bad. Dern gets the takedown, does nothing with the takedown. Godinez is outstriking Dern, but Dern is occasionally landing on Godinez while also missing the majority of her strikes. It's good that Perillo was in her corner this time, because her strikes looked a lot much better than her Lemos fight. But regardless of Perillo or not, she still missed a big chunk of her strikes. A huge chunk of her strikes, while Godinez is outstriking her. The problem is, Godinez stands in this weird... I think it's the optics. Godinez is bleeding while huffing for air, and while she is moving forward, she was definitely outstriking Dern, and it just didn't look good. I just think it was a bad optics fight. Godinez 100% won this third round, but they didn't give it to her. So I'm gonna say honorable mention to all three of them. Okay, I'm going to say honorable mention to all 3 of them. Hadi Muhammad Ali, Howard Hughes, and Clemens Warner, all their scorecards reflect the same. They give the first round to Dern and the last round to Dern. Honorable nonsense. Godinez should have won, but we move on. You go to the next honorable mention, and that's Vera versus Figueiredo. Vera looked a lot better than I thought, but then again, the narrative on Vera seems to be he's a slow starter. I just think he's getting cooked now. I just think there are a lot of fighters that are just naturally better than him. And Figueiredo is slowly making a weird case for fighting for the title eventually, and possibly going down as a 2-weight class champion, but we'll have to wait and see. Maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit here. Vera versus Figueiredo, 29-28 for Figueiredo. First round for Figueiredo, last round for Figueiredo. You go to the first round. Figueiredo had 2 takedowns with some ground and pound, and he outstruck Vera on the feet by about 5+ strikes. And then he landed like a Michel Pereira kick that didn't hit the head of Vera, but it hit the neck. It hit the neck, and that was close to illegal, but I've always thought Figueiredo's kind of dirty, but we'll leave that alone. Second round, Vera outstruck Figueiredo by about 7 strikes. That was apparent. He was outstriking him pretty much the entire round, but he outstruck him by about 7 strikes. Then you go to the third round, where once Figueiredo dropped Vera, because the strikes were relatively close up until this drop. Vera, I believe, was up at the time, but once Figueiredo dropped Vera, it was pretty much over. He dropped him, and he outstruck him by 3 strikes. That round belongs to Figueiredo, really based off of the dropping. You go to the judges' scorecards here, and then Ben Cartlidge, his scorecard reflects mine. So does Hadi Muhammad Ali, and then Howard Hughes again just decides he's not really watching intently. He gives all 3 rounds to Figueiredo when the second round should have gone to Marlon Chito Vera. So honorable mention that Howard Hughes for like the 18,000th time. You go to the next scorecard, and that's Magomedov versus Oleksiejczuk. I had this 30-27. This is a 30-27. Somebody wanted to be cute. Somebody wanted to be cute and expansive and give a 29-28. Okay? And it's not. It's not a 29-28. We go to the score. We go to the descriptions. The first round, Magomedov. Now, by the way this fight was talked about via commentary is a little gross. They made it seem as though Oleksiejczuk was getting beat the fuck up. When, in respect to Oleksiejczuk, he was losing. He lost all 3 rounds. He was fairly close within the strike margin. First of all, he was moving forward. Irrelevant, but I'm just trying to depict how this wasn't really a one-sided affair. He was moving forward, and while he was getting hit with the much heavier strikes and was getting outstruck, he was landing occasionally, not even occasionally, pretty frequently on Magomedov. But that wasn't really depicted. It wasn't depicted at all. In fact, by the second to third round, we had notes from the commentary talking about Oleksiejczuk's toughness, when that shouldn't have even been. Yes, this is a 30-27, but that shouldn't have even been mentioned. He wasn't getting Matino'd, he wasn't getting Vera'd, he wasn't getting blown the fuck up. He was just losing. But they made it seem like he was getting murdered. But that's me being annoyed. You go to the first round. Magomedov outstruck Oleksiejczuk by about 4 strikes. There was a moment where Oleksiejczuk dropped Magomedov. He didn't really drop him. Magomedov was off balance, but I just wanted to mention that point. But Magomedov outstruck Oleksiejczuk by about 4+ strikes. Second round, Magomedov outstruck Oleksiejczuk again on the feet. This time by 5 strikes, and Oleksiejczuk had a takedown. Doesn't matter. He didn't really do anything with it. Then the third round, Magomedov outstruck Oleksiejczuk on the feet. 7+ strikes. Again, I'm telling you, the strike numbers, I believe, were a lot closer than how it sounded on commentary. And then Oleksiejczuk had 2 takedowns with very little ground and pound. And Magomedov was so active on the bottom. In fact, he was more active on the bottom than Oleksiejczuk was at all. And so that round belongs to Magomedov. You go to the judges' scorecards. Vito Paillo, Daryl Ransom, their scorecard reflects mine, 30-27 for Magomedov. And then Clemens Werner, really, I think he thought the drop, looking at the scorecard, he gives the first round to Oleksiejczuk. I believe he thinks that Oleksiejczuk dropped Magomedov when in fact he was off balance. So I won't give an honorable mention there. Maybe he just looked at it wrong. I'll give grace. Also, back to piggyback on the commentary. Commentary versus Dern and Godinez was awful in the sense that when they referenced the strike numbers, while I do believe the strike numbers that they showed were a little inflated for Loopy Godinez, they weren't off. they were not off at all. I think they depicted them correctly in the sense that Godinez was outstriking Dern, but commentary was just too into the optics of how the fight looked that depicted how they felt who was winning the fight. So there's another note on that. Go to the last fight of the night, and that's Sandhagen versus Nurmagomedov. I had this 49-46 for Nurmagomedov. This is a 49-46. This isn't a 50-45 at all. Okay, and I was surprised to even see that. Also, some people had it 2-2. Just wonky scorecards here. This wasn't hard to score. 49-46 for Nurmagomedov. First round for Sandhagen. That's the only round for Sandhagen. And then every other round goes to Nurmagomedov. Sadly, I wanted Sandhagen to win, but it is what it is. You go to these descriptions real quick. Sandhagen outstruck Nurmagomedov by 4 strikes. Nurmagomedov had a takedown at the end of the round. Did nothing with it. He was outstruck on the feet by Sandhagen. You go to the second round, okay, and this is where the tide starts to turn. Nurmagomedov had a takedown, and he outstruck Sandhagen by 2 strikes. He was slightly ahead on strikes in the second round, and he had a takedown. His round, 100%. It's 1-1 so far. Third round, Nurmagomedov had a takedown. He outstruck Sandhagen on the feet by about 5 strikes. This is round 2 to 3 is where Nurmagomedov starts to pretty much outstrike Sandhagen consistently. Again, round 3, he has a takedown, outstrikes Sandhagen by about 5 strikes. Fourth round, he has a takedown, he outstrikes Sandhagen by about 14 strikes. And then the fifth round, Nurmagomedov has a takedown with some ground and pound, and he outstrikes Sandhagen on the feet by about 4 strikes. That's where you have it. You go to the judges' scorecards, and they're just fucking... 2 of them are retarded. Mike Bell, honorable mention, he gives the first round to Nurmagomedov, 50-45 for Nurmagomedov. That's nonsense. And it's nonsense because regardless of the takedown at the end of the round, Sandhagen is not only outstriking Nurmagomedov, relatively keeping up with him and outstriking him in the end, he's deterring all of his takedowns up until the last one. I know that doesn't matter, but it matters in the sense that he's effectively grappling and he's effectively striking. I don't know what else you want here. David Lethaby, he gives the second round, all the rounds he gives to Nurmagomedov other than the second round, he gives the second round to Corey Sandhagen. That doesn't even make sense because the first 2 rounds are basically the polar opposite. He gives a little bit of the polar opposite. He gives the second round to Sandhagen. Again, in the second round, Nurmagomedov had a takedown, and he's outstriking Corey Sandhagen. So honorable mention there to David Lethaby. And then Ben Cartledge, his scorecard reflects mine. And there you have it. Just a routine Abu Dhabi fight. And now it's on to the next one. Now we are on to the next one. And we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that pushes to be. That's all I have so far. I believe that's all I have. Right? Is that all I have? That's it. That's all I really want to talk about. Thank you all for listening, and God bless.